Hey guys, Dave here. Today I want to talk about the e-bikes that I have. I've got a stable of 4 e-bikes now. One of them has been purchased online. The other 3 have been built by myself. All good stuff. Just want to talk about some pros, cons, and just about the bikes themselves. So let's introduce the bikes. This is the Juiced Camp Scrambler right here, this first one. This is running a 750 watt hub motor, and it's a brushed motor, so it has a little bit more torque than the rest of them. This next one is going to be a specialized Roll 3.0. I converted this to a brushless rear wheel. This is a 1200 watt motor in the rear, works really well. Then this third one right here, this is a mid-drive motor, so this is a BBSO2. It's a 750 watt motor with an integrated controller. Very cool. And then we have this other one right here. This is also a brushless motor, but instead of the motor in the rear, we have the motor in the front. And I just wanted to talk about them. I don't think you can really go wrong with any configuration, but I do have some preferences and I wanted to talk about them just a little bit. There's a couple of different characteristics that I've noticed between these motors. Generally, the brushed motors have a little bit more torque on the low end and then they lose the speed on the high end. Brushless don't have quite as much torque, but they just keep pulling and pulling and pulling. You can go 30 miles an hour with them. Could be the fact that they are, they pull more watts than the brushed version, but there's a couple of pros and cons there as well. And then the front, the motor in the front, this is probably my least favorite configuration. The reason being, even though this is this weighs what, 14 pounds, it weighs down the motor pretty well. When you pedal or when you apply power to the motor, it almost spins the wheel when you're at full power. So having all that weight in the rear is really helpful to keep grip and to keep it powered. I do like the way this bike is balanced. You have the motor, the controller, and the battery in the rear, and the motor in the front. I do like the balance, but it just doesn't feel like there's enough weight on the front to hold that down. If you can't, pop a wheelie, do anything like that. So I think this works pretty well for an on-road commuter, especially if you're not going crazy in terms of speed. But as soon as you get up there in speed or you start doing hill climbs, you lose a lot of that confidence that you get with power in the rear wheel. At least that's my opinion. Mid-drive motor, I really, really love mid-drive motors and how they handle their power. This one's a 750 watt, but it is a 52 volt system. So we've got 52 volts come to this controller. We only have about 18 amps going to it. Even so, it does have gears, and this thing will spin around anywhere from 110 to 140 revolutions per minute. So you can change how fast it goes just by adjusting the gearing. So you can have it hill climb a lot better by changing the gearing. You can have it go a lot faster by changing the gearing. You can easily go 30 miles an hour on this, no problem. The downside, I'd say, to a mid-drive is the fact that you have to have a pretty nice chain configuration, because you're going to use the chain to drive the bike at all times. So every 1,000 miles or so, you're going to be swapping the chain. You need to make sure your cogs are good, because to propel the bike forward, you have to have a working chain. So I would say that the mid-drive does require a little bit more maintenance due to that. Now, one of the reasons I like the rear hub brushless motor is the fact that it's so simple. This thing is so simple. To drive the bike forward, you don't actually have to have a working chain at all. You can just drive it forward by pushing on the throttle. It's pretty sweet. So, and it also doesn't wear the chain out. If you're going throttle only or something, you're just going to be idling, or you're just going to be freewheeling on that, and the chain's not moving at all. So you put a lot less wear and tear on the chain just because you have this hub motor. You do have to have thicker spokes back here. It might not be as nice for jumps and things like that, but for basic stuff that I'm doing, I do get off-road. Don't get too crazy though. The rear brushless hub motor is actually really nice. I think it's probably one of my favorite configurations just because of how simple and easy it is to manage and maintain. And brushless, I mean, they're supposed to last a long, long time. So I really do like this configuration. The brushed is really nice as well. You do get tons and tons of torque. I've lugged 500, well, okay, maybe not 500, but I've lugged close to 400 pounds on this thing, and it just pulls, and it's great. So the brushed motor is actually really nice, and again, it's one of those configurations where I don't need the chain to be in optimal condition. This is really good right now because it's definitely not in optimal condition. Hear that popping? Yeah, I do too. I have no idea what that is, but it's not super great. And if this was if this was driven by the chain, I'd have to figure that out immediately and I would probably stop riding it. But since it's driven by the hub motor, I can, ride it over to the bike shop without even pedaling, and we can figure out what the issue is. Or I can figure it out myself. It just gives you a little bit more option. I just like that. Anyway, that's my stable of bikes. I actually really like all of these bikes for different reasons. I don't know if I can actually rank them in what I like and what I don't like, but I'm not a huge fan of the front wheel configuration just because of it gets a little sketchy on the uphills when you're applying a lot of power, when you're turning. If that breaks traction or anything, it's gonna be an issue, but it's really easy to put together. You just slap it on your front brakes and you're ready to rock and roll. So if you've never done this before, you don't want to mess with your drivetrain, man, it's a super simple way to get into it, and really, the kits don't cost that much. This kit right here was like 250 bucks, and I got the bike for free. I'm using V-brakes on it, and it's pretty sweet. I can go 30 miles an hour on it, and it's fantastic. Like 30 miles an hour GPS. So generally, these for any of these bikes, the little speedometer it comes with is about 10% fast, just like motorcycles and things like that. This one's supposed to be able to go 28 miles an hour. I can get about 26 miles an hour on it. This is the slowest of the bunch, the one that I purchased, and I have to be pedaling for that. All these others, I can hit 28, 30 miles an hour just right out of the gate. Anyway, that's my stable. Just kind of wanted to show you different configurations you can have. Again, mid-drives are awesome, but a lot of times they're sold as like the end-all be-all. This is the best configuration you can have. I don't think it's the best configuration. I do think it's very nice. It's got, it's balanced. It's right in the middle of the bike. It's low. You got a low center of gravity. But the rear brushless hub motor, I actually really like it. And I may even prefer it to the mid-drive just because it doesn't wear out the chain or any of the sprockets or cogs fast at all. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.